So, well, I will talk about the work that I did with Henrik Plaza on argumentation and agreement over concept meaning, and that has already been tested on several simple scenarios. I will start with a quick introduction on some notions of machine learning that probably some of you already knows, but that are good to refresh. So, intelligent systems, in order to work, need to categorize things. Basically, when they are confronted to examples, they look for elements on those examples that they recognize and that they can use to build a generalization over those elements. And then when they have created a category, they can associate a sign with those categories, those categorizations, to communicate with other agents. And, oh, it's here. Okay. To communicate with other agents with those signs. So, for the moment, just remember those three things: elements, examples, generalization, and sign. Things start to be a little bit more complicated when we have a lot of elements. So, for example, here I will talk about the lexical field of seats. In the field of seats, you have chairs and armchairs, and you can divide this field, the elements of this field, by making generalization, by taking generalization over the elements of those examples. Like, does it have arms? Does it have a back? And to building an intentional definition by opposition to the extensional definition, which is the set of all the example in the domain. Of course, the sign, well, remains the sign. We name the semiotic triangle the relation between an extensional definition, an intentional definition, and a sign. Of course, the triangle that we have defined will be the reference to a concept of a thing. If you have different concepts over a particular domain, you can build a contrast set on this domain. A contrast set will be a partition of the domain of seats in different things, armchair, chair, etc. One condition to, for those contrast sets to work is that a generalization from one concept shouldn't generalize one example from another concept, of course. Those semiotic, yes. But what can happen? We can, when for example, two different speakers, two different agents has different contrast sets, we can have a disagreement over a concept meaning. For example, here we have an agent who is considering chairs or a synonym of seat, and another one that chair is a kind of armchairs or a subclass of chairs. So if we present an armchair to those two agents, of course, one of them will generalize it and name it a chair, the first one, and the second one will name it an armchair. There is disagreement. What is our approach to solve this problem? Well, if we represent, for example, here a concept as the semiotic triangle, and we have the concept red and cyan in the concept K2 and the magenta in the concept K1. If we present a yellow object to the agent, the only solution they have to understand each other is to split one of their concepts. For example, the agent that has K1 will split the green concept into cyan and yellow, and the other agent will split the concept red into yellow and magenta to reach an agreement over the meaning of the example that they are confronted to. But let's get to the chair example again. To reach an example, to reach an agreement over the meaning of a particular kind of seat. Well, for example, if someone is entering a shop and is asking for 2 chairs and 1 armchair, of course, you don't have to change your general definition of a chair to understand that the person that you are talking with is not talking about a chair that could be an armchair, but a chair that doesn't have any arms. So, 2 things that are relevant on our approach is that we only have to change the concept that generalizes the example that is presented to reach an agreement. We are not, when we try to reach an agreement, we are not trying to redefine our whole lexical field to understand each other. We are only change the concepts that are relevant. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that we want to build contrast sets in order to change only the contextual meaning of things. We will not change the general meaning of a chair, only the meaning of a chair when we are talking with the other agent or speaker. So in order to do that, we implemented a communication protocol that I will now present. That starts by the presentation of, well, an example, and then the 2 agents of our multi-agent system will use the sign that they consider to be referred by to be linked with this example. They first start to see if there is a disagreement. If there is no disagreement, of course, they don't try to change any meaning, any concept, anything. But if they have, they will start to check if the other agent sign is something no in a contrast set. If it's not the case, they will ask the other agent the intentional definition, the meaning of what they said. They will check how many concepts of their contrast set are well, attacked, disturbed by this new meaning, this new intentional definition. And well, if there is more than one, we are in a particular case that I will present in the conclusion. But if there is 0, of course, well, they shouldn't have been a disagreement. And if there was only one, we can do something with this protocol. We can count how many examples from the associated extensional definition are subsumed by this new generalization. If there is one that is not subsumed, it means that we are in the case of eponymy or hypernymy. That means that we have to split the concept into two new concepts. For example, if we had a chair, we will now split it into an armchair and a chair to refine the definition. If it was, well, if there is not examples that are not subsumed, it means that we're in the case of a synonym, and we will just change the sign to a new concept and put it in a new contrast set. So how do we split concept? Well, we can see a typical a scenario where, for example, the agent one has the extension definition E1 and E2. The second one has the extensional definition E3 and E4. There is an example presented, and the agent one associate this example EX to the sign S2, but the agent 2 to the sign S4. So what happened? The agent 2 asks for the intentional definition E2 to the agent A1, and when he gets it, he sees that the intentional definition is covering something inside his intentional definition I4. So it will take this intentional definitions, take this new sign, create the new concept, and then create a new concept E5 associated to the sign E4 that he had, and that are not subsuming anymore the concept E6. So now it's time to conclude. Our protocol has been tested on a case of hyponyms. Synonyms are working too, and scenarios where the two cases occurs, like concept teaching, are also working. For our future work, we want to focus on a contrast set with overlapping extensional definitions of concept. This is this particular case that I mentioned before. And also see what could happen when we have several levels of contrast sets. For example, here we have a contrast set on chair, armchair, chairs, armchair, stool, for example, and a chair has arms, back, etc., and we want to be able to have contrast set on that too. It would lead at the end to investigate a recursive approach of agreement. Thank you. Exactly.
But there are other possible theories, which one is, for example, prototypes. So referring to a very representative example. Another one, I think, is called the egg yolk theory, where you have the yolk of the egg is kind of, those are the typical things, and then there is a bigger area of things that are kind of related. Have you considered, rather than attacking, also kind of maybe looking
Yes, we don't try to, well, the prototype theory is close from the generation that we have. It's like of a prototype. We have the prototypic elements, but if you give we don't try to agree on the general meaning of things. We try to agree on the specific meaning, the contextual meaning of things. When we need to agree on the meaning of something, we will try to reach an agreement. Other way, well, meaning is not something.
So you never try, for example, to find out, to explore all the boundaries between, my definition and your definition?
No. Yes, this is on the contextual meaning. We don't, when you and me speak, we don't try to understand, well, to see if we match every meaning. Yes. Yes. For example, first thing is that in each agent, the constraint on the constraint set is that you don't have in one agent you don't have overlapping. But if there is two constraint sets in different agents, they can overlap. And to solve the problems resolved to that, we would use the table of correspondence between the different concepts to see how many examples from an extensional definition of a concept or a concept by a revision of the meaning, and eventually change the meaning of the less disturbed concept. And well, that's it.
So for each agent, the contrast set is fully separated. So there is no notion of entailment for my own representation of chairs and armchairs. These are fully separated sets.
Yes.
Okay. So I do not have means to capture the fact that if something is an armchair, then it's also a chair.
Well, in general, something that is a chair can be also an armchair.
Yes.
But in a context, you're referring to something, and it cannot be, well.
Okay.
If you use the two signs, it means that you want to make a distinction between two things.
But I usually only use one, right? I'm either talking about chairs or armchairs, and we don't really know whether I want to distinguish them.
Yes, I don't know at first, but then I will guess what you mean.
What about false agreement? If we have the same concept for two different examples.
Yes. For example, I will give you an example. For example, if you consider that as a stool is something without arm and without back, and a chair is whatever else, and you consider that armchair is another agent. Consider that armchair is something with arms, and chair is whatever else. If they see a chair that is not an armchair or a stool, they will agree, but they don't have the same definition of what is a chair. There is no problem, because what they see is a chair that is, they both agree on the sign to use, so there is no contextual problem.
So there cannot be any situation of kind of thinking that you agree but you disagree?
Excuse me?
So we think that we agree, but we are wrong. Actually, can that happen?
They are wrong. Well, it works, so they are not wrong. They are.
Right. Right. So as long as it works.
Yes.
More questions?